There's a fundamental difference between composing for film, TV and games and being a film, TV or games composer. The difference is one is a craft, the other is a business. And I believe good entrepreneurs make good film, TV and games composers. I'm going to have to get out my pens and my pad. Right, I'm going to clear this off. So I checked out the dictionary definition of entrepreneur before coming out here today, and it says, kind of quite coldly, someone who starts up a business or takes a financial risk in order to set up a business. For me, a successful entrepreneur is a creative, someone who comes up with an idea, finds a need in the marketplace, and then makes a... Oh, this is the place I always fall down. Looking at how Paul and I set up Spitfire Audio, I think there's one key factor. We never set out to make any money. Paul and I got together in a pub for a drink to talk about how we could get some smaller sounding string samples, and if we could get into the Hall at Air Studios to do those, how wonderful that would be. I said, well, how are we going to finance this? Paul said, well, I think we can possibly sell about 200 copies, cover our costs. And I said, you know what, Paul? Fuck that. I'm not going to be, packing boxes from my flat in Soho. How about we get in touch with some of my more established friends who are composers and see if we could set up a, not club, but just a smaller group of users paying a premium for something quite exclusive. So Spitfire was born. And the only reason we're here today is because I'm a thinker and a warrior. Paul is a thinker and a doer. And the minute I said yes to that, fairly drunk over a few pints in a bar in Soho, he just got on with it. I've always said if you go on a fishing trip with Paul, make sure you get your waders on quick, because he'll be casting a line whilst you're still putting your socks on. The fundamental difference between being a business person, profit, loss, negative, positive, plus, minus, yin, yang. I mean, there's many examples in nature of binary systems, but I don't think being an entrepreneur is a binary system. I kind of see it like a bath. You have your water tap, your hot tap, and your cold tap, and it's all about balancing these different taps. So let's have a look at this. Here are your different taps. Turns out, not very good at drawing taps. Being the bottom right, I think it's only appropriate that we talk about this being financial tap. This is your exposure tap, your marketing, your promotion, your brand, if you will. So this is, we'll call it our promo tap. And this is the development tap, development and growth. The simple kind of fact of life, if your business is here and a competitor is here, you can let them catch up with you, or you can continue to grow and advance yourself. So those are the three axes. Your finance tap is your water tap. Without water, you simply don't get a bath of any kind. Your promo, we could call that your hot tap, and your personal development, your cold tap. And the idea is to have a warm bath that's neither too hot nor too cold. So how do we apply this with Spitfire? Well, we make sample libraries, and the idea is that we try and hit this middle mark as much as possible. So we make a library, and hopefully by creating this library, we grow as a company, customers coming in, we grow our IP base, but also our exposure is greater because we've released something new, there's something to talk about. So that's the happy middle spot. Now, that can't always be the case. So there are areas of Spitfire's business which are not profit-centred. We use our investment to invest in other areas that are kind of more purely aimed at either promotion or development. So, for example, I would say my vlog doesn't really promote Spitfire massively, doesn't really encourage people to spend money at Spitfire, but it does help us to understand our customer and ourselves a lot more. Whereas, I don't know, one of Paul's walkthroughs would be more kind of firmly over here. We've got our journal, I would say somewhere up here, events kind of down here, and stuff like Black Friday down here. The whole point at the end of the year is to see that all of your activity gives a kind of net result that is somewhere in the centre. But this is a kind of established company. We have liquidity and an ability to invest in all of these areas. So for us, this is more of a kind of a checksum of, are we continuing to grow? Are we marketing ourselves effectively? And is our brand as strong as it has been for the previous years? And are we still turning a profit? Is the tap still running so that we continue operating? So how do we apply this to composing? So our aim is to create scores that earn us cash. We want them to promote ourselves. You get awards, you get really good credit, you are interviewed for magazines, that kind of stuff. We want these scores to do that. So we want high-profile scores that pay well, but also that continue to help you develop as an artist, as a craftsperson, and also to grow your business, to increase your visibility. So that's firmly between these 2 points here. It's very difficult throughout one's career to have, those jobs that hit that perfect middle spot. They either they're under budget, or they're over budget and a bit shit, or they're over budget and they're going to be a massive credit for you, but then you get fired because they really want a big, AAA composer on board. A measure of you being treated fairly on a job is not just you earning money, and it's not just being recognised, being given a credit. It is also about you being able to pull out some personal development experience and education, whether that be a musical one, or whether that be one as learning how to become a head of a department, or indeed, how does that composer who's so successful deal with those utter wankers? I know he's working, or she's working with those utter wankers. How can they do it when I find it so difficult? Extracting that information is opening that tap up. Provided you are getting at least one of these taps to return something for you, it is worth your energy and investment. And this is how you gauge the efficacy of, say, ghostwriting, assisting other composers. So it's likely that at the beginning of your career, you'll need to invest in developing, and then you'll gradually promote yourself, become part of the community, and then eventually hit that payday. Hopefully at all points these will be feeding a little bit of cash in. You'll be increasing the jobs that you're doing, etc., etc. But it's also very unwise to get all the way here. So you're just doing jobs that pay. That is with a few kind of dotted up here. For me, it's not just about making this a kind of initial career plan. This is your checksum for your career as a whole. You should continue rotating round these 3 axes, if you will. I think a good example is actually to look at the careers of actors. They're so visible, you can really see, you can trace what they've done. And the very successful long-term kind of careers, say someone like Kate Winslet, you'll see that they oscillate between doing massive blockbusters and smaller independents. The smaller independents get them the accolades, the Oscar nominations, that kind of stuff. I imagine develop them, and their craft, the ability to work with interesting new young directors, all of that kind of stuff. And then the blockbusters get them the cash. But I'm going to throw you just one more curveball, because I actually don't think the success of a career is just based over 3 poles. I think there's a 4th. And this is when it gets really, really difficult. It's the one area in my life that I've really failed at over the years. It's always the first thing to go down the toilet if I start being kind of more taxed by my business, is my own physical health, well-being, and time spent with my family. I think some of you have already kind of isolated this as a possible problem, and I appreciate your concern here. It is something I want to work at. I think it's just interesting to actually put John Williams into this 4-axis model. He's never been kind of eaten up by show business. He's not needed to kind of whore himself around, but by golly, has he sold a lot of records and done a lot of concerts over the years, appeared at, Oscar ceremonies. That's a good bit of marketing. You look at someone like Hans Zimmer. There is a lot of artistic growth always there. He's very conscious of staying ahead of the curve, which is why, it's an incredible thing to hear his score for Dunkirk, considering he's been in the industry as long as he has. We all know of, particularly in music, people becoming a bit kind of cheesy when they've been at it for a few years. I see bands who have been together for 30 years, eventually they go, probably should do a bit of yoga. There's an argument for making hay when the sun shines, but also, I think we've seen so many examples within the music industry of these bright lights that come onto the scene, but then are kind of extinguished either through tragedy or because of the way in which they've structured their business. And it's not just your physical health, it's your mental health too. Well, I see them as pretty much one and the same thing. Returning back to that thing of, we know we shouldn't smoke because we know it's bad for our physical health, yet we happily apply similar stresses to shit that's going on up there by working too long hours, exerting too much kind of mental stress and strain strain on ourselves. You know, I have a friend who is incredibly successful. I was talking to him about just this, you know, how do you just deal with this impossible balancing act of, you know, being a successful businessman, being a successful artist, you know, having a huge fan base, but also spending time with your family and, you know, last but not least, I should say, looking after your health. And he said, well, no matter how busy I am, I always ensure that I have some time off one day a week, and it's a fixed day every week. He is off grid for, I think it's just something like 6 hours, and he goes and has a massage, maybe goes to a gym, just has a bit of kind of him time. I know a very successful film composer, his orchestral sessions always start at 10:30, not 10, even if that means he has to lose some of his preferred players because it may interrupt one of the afternoon sessions. He prefers to do that so he can take his children to school. So it's by creating these health boundaries, mental, physical well-being, I think you can also really ensure that you're around to enjoy life when the profit taps go on. Thanks, as always, for watching, and do look after yourselves long term. I'm going to work at it, I promise. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you'd like to be notified the next time I put a video up, ding that bell. See you next time.